Alrighty, perfect. So, um, so to get started, I'm going to ask you my first question, and it is a really vague one. So I hope that's all right. It's intended to be vague. So the
Okay.
question is, if you had to describe yourself, what's the one thing that if you didn't say wouldn't truly be you, because it's so central to who you are?
If I didn't say, it wouldn't be true,
Yeah, it wouldn't be you,
or it wouldn't be me.
right?
Um, Probably I am protective, I guess.
Okay,
I don't know. Yeah, that's a very vague question.
it is.
I'm trying to think about a word that I would use, or that I would say, but wouldn't necessarily.
Yeah, no pressure. Take your time. Like, I don't expect someone to just be like, "Oh, I know that."
Yeah. Um, it would be almost better if I gave like 5 words.
That's fine.
Okay. I would say I'm curious. I'm goofy. I'm protective. Um, I am. Um, hmm, Bold. Yeah, it would probably be all 3 of those, or all 4 or 5 of those words.
Okay.
So
So I have
if
curious,
that helps, I don't know.
protective, goofy, and bold.
Hmm.
Okay. I just want to make sure I got those written down in case I forget one.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm interested. When you say protective, what comes to mind? Like, what do you mean by that?
I see my family, and for me, I put um, a pretty big responsibility on being protective over my family. I think I might have always been that way, but through circumstances, that was kind of even more important to me. Um, yeah, protecting them, being there for them. If they need me to do things for them, I'm able to. Um, so yeah, pretty defensive over my sister. Just anyone that I care about in general, I'm pretty
Yeah,
defensive over.
you got those family values.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. And uh, and then you said curious.
Hmm.
So could you elaborate more? Like, what would you be curious about?
Um, I'm naturally very curious. From the time that I was about, well, as far as I can remember, I was always tinkering with stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Always messing with physical things, like trying to see how things worked. Like when I was 8, I think I would like take my computer apart and try to hook it back up into my room. So I was always doing stuff like that, and now I am like constantly consuming new systems of thought, and trying to kind of create mental models of what I've learned. Um, yeah, and just gathering a lot of information and creating piles of that information that I can use and have whenever I need to, or whenever I need it. Yeah, so I've done that with the Enneagram. Um, I'm getting certified in the Enneagram. And what I've done is I've essentially just learned from multiple different people, and I've kind of compiled that data and then kind of decided for myself what I thought from all data that I gathered, what was the most accurate in terms of the way that I saw it, I guess. And I do that with everything. I'm always like getting an antithesis or an antithetical view, whatever you want to call it, and kind of using both examples, holding both of those up, and then distilling that information into a single kind of concept and a classification of thought about that. So if I ever need to like reference that thing of thought, I could pull out something from my bag of folders of knowledge, um, and use that kind of, that's usually what I do when I'm learning something, is like gathering as much information as I can about it and then trying to organize it into a single concept, or just kind of like breaking it apart and seeing what is it that I'm actually looking at.
Right. Yeah, like grabbing the essential components and putting together your own machine, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
okay. Interesting. And you take in a lot of information in that way for that reason.
Yeah. Yeah, I take in a lot of, and it's kind of hard because it doesn't stop. I mean, it's like, if I read one thing, if there's one new system, if I look at it for more than 5 minutes, my brain is automatically saying, well, you don't know this topic, or you don't know this system. And so in some ways, like, my brain is trying to prepare for needing that information. So it's like pointless acquisition of knowledge. It's not like I necessarily need it.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's like in case something were to come up, you'd want to be prepared for it.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to happen.
Right.
Okay. Let's see. Oh yeah, that's right. We have our list of words. Okay. Yeah, so can you elaborate a little bit on the goofy part?
Yeah, I would say I'm pretty entertaining, funny in a group, but I mean, that's naturally how I am. If I'm around a group that I don't really know that well, I'll kind of be a little bit more reserved and kind of trying to understand my environment more and how I can work it, I guess. Or so yeah, that's what I would say in terms of being goofy. But I also think within a group, I can either, it's just draining. If I'm in a group and I'm constantly trying to track like the kind of vibe of the room, it can be really exhausting if it goes on for too long. So I'll try to interject and kind of, play games with people, or kind of do the social thing and make sure it's good when I have it, so that once it's done, I'm like, okay, I did this well. I can just stop and go home and just chill. Like, I don't have to. So it can be pretty exhausting to be in groups for too long, like trying to, like, large amounts of emoting and like emotional. I don't know. If it's too long, it gets pretty draining, I guess.
Yeah, maxes you out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Another question about that. Okay, so earlier when you started talking about that, you said that you're reserved around people that you don't know. Can you tell me a little bit more about like why you might feel reserved when you're around people that you don't know very well?
Yeah. Why am I reserved? I kind of want to just wait to kind of see. I don't think I've ever thought about that. It just takes me a little bit to kind of warm up to them. I feel like I have a pretty loud personality in general, so I have to see whether or not they can kind of that there's a type of compatibility. If it's too, if I'm coming across too much or too loud, then I'm like, okay, I need to kind of read this person or whatever. But I would say the way what I substitute for that is kind of being more. I would rather talk about things that are kind of intellectual, or things that I can think about, which I can do that for a long period of time. I don't really need to rest that, but it's more about how am I coming across and how are they perceiving me. And that's where I get kind of like, okay, I don't know, which I really don't like. I don't care that much because I still do it. Like, I'll still be like kind of loud and boisterous at times, but it's just trying to see if they can handle me first. Like, okay, is this type of environment where I can actually be myself and like let go? Yeah.
Okay. So, because you mentioned for a moment there that, you may not even care what people think, and you'll be boisterous anyways. So,
Yeah.
what is important to you when you're with a group of people or with one person or whatever it may be? Like what's the most important thing for you to feel like you don't have to worry about that kind of thing?
Hmm. The
Like
one thing I don't.
yeah, like let's say like right now you're talking to me, right? But you're like maybe like you have like I don't know, like maybe I shouldn't like act too boisterous or whatever it would be. Like what is it that what kinds of scenarios or situations might you be in where that kind of fades away and you don't even have to think about it anymore?
Depends on who I'm with. So if I'm in a group of people that know me and they've been around me for years, they already know that I'm like that, then I won't have to kind of hold back that energy.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's around people I don't know, I can be far more. I'll be more like kind of proper, I guess, quote unquote. Which it's really, I'll be more proper than I would be otherwise. Because
Mm-hmm.
if I'm
Proper.
and it only lasts for so long, so it's like I'll say certain things and interject certain things and read how they responded to it. And if I can see that they're like, holy shit, I can't believe you said that, I might rein it in a little bit. But if they're laughing and they're like, oh, this is fun, then I'm like, oh, well, see ya. Like, it's game over at this point.
Right.
So, yeah,
So
I
is
can't
it,
hold it for that.
yeah, sorry. Is it that when you're acting proper, is it that you have this idea that maybe there's something you don't know about this person that you have to act a little bit more like put together? If that makes sense?
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that I'm thinking about
Not
what
in
is
like
in the
not in a
person that's
business
making.
sense. Wait, say it again?
Yeah, like I'm not like for the person, I'm not thinking about what is in the person that's making them react towards me. It's more
Right.
about what are they doing on the outside that's making me see that, oh, that was clearly for whatever reason. Maybe I said something that they didn't agree with. I'm not going to assume that it's like this internal state that maybe they went through this thing or this thing. It's more about they're showing me that they're actually upset about something or whatever. So I don't, and that's the problem because sometimes I can't read. Like, for example, if I do this shit all the time, it's so annoying, but like someone will have a situation where everyone knows a certain thing happened, and I can be kind of like, I don't think things are taboo. So if something happened, I would just say, well, what happened to that guy or some shit? And I would say something like that. And they
Right.
would be like, oh, like, you can't say that out. I'm like, why not? Like, I don't understand why it's a big deal. So I only see what's on the outside. So
Because
I
it
can
right.
clearly see, yeah, like I can see if someone's like pissed, but I'm going to vocalize it. Like, why is that guy so fucking mad? Like, but they're like, yo, like, he might react this way based upon you saying that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't, first of all, I don't care. And second of all, clearly he's pissed, but no one's saying anything.
Right.
So that's usually what happens where like people will know that I'm going to say something and I'm not trying to start shit. It's just like, well, he's clearly mad. Like, does no one see this shit? Like,
Right. So other people are trying
yeah,
to give you the hint that maybe it's a sensitive topic for the person and they're
yeah,
like dealing with
yeah, yeah.
someone and you're not thinking about that until you see them react and then you're like, oh, okay. Now I get it.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then I'm cool. And then I'm like, yo, bro, like, I'm sorry. Like, but to them, they're just perplexed. They're like, how the fuck did you not know that? I'm like, it's not that I didn't know, but it's like, if I would expect someone to say that or to be like, yo, I'm not in a good mood, just leave me alone or something like that. Then I'm like, oh, bet, like, no worries. But
Yeah.
when people kind of hide their emotions and kind of hide what's happening and they don't show it, I'm just like, what the fuck is happening? Like, are you mad? Or you just say it? Like,
Yeah. It's like they're carrying like something around and you're like, what is
yeah,
that?
yeah. I'm like, that's weird. Clearly, and the funny thing is when they say they're not X, and clearly they're demonstrating the emotion of X, and I'm like, okay, this doesn't add up. Like you say you're not pissed, but your actions, you're slamming doors and throwing shit. So that doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
funny. Okay. Interesting. Yeah. So it also says bold. That was one of the ones that one of the words you said. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
yeah. I'm not really averse to like taking risks or failing. I feel like some people can be somewhat cautious about certain things, and not that I like go and run in traffic, but if, for example, so when I first started driving at FedEx, or actually when I got my bigger truck, my boss was like, "Can you do it? Like, can you drive this truck?" And from the jump, I'm like, "Absolutely, I can do it." And don't underestimate me. So, like,
Right.
as soon as I got in the truck, I'm like, I'm just looking at everything I need to know. I'm like, okay, this is here. This is how long the truck is. I need to make sure I can turn it this way, because if I don't turn it this way, it's going to hit something next to me. I need to know how it's going to operate.
Mhm.
So yeah, like I would drive in places that were pretty questionable, but I knew and was very confident, like, I'm not going to make a mistake, but if I do make a mistake, it's not the end of the world. Like I'm going to take a chance. And if I fail, then I know next time not to do that thing. So that's what I would say for me is like what boldness is, like yeah. So,
Right. Like having a high chance of failure and still doing it anyways, right?
yeah.
Betting on your own will to accomplish it.
Yeah.
Okay. You also mentioned like having a good sense of like the spatial dimensions of the truck.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
something that, yeah?
Yeah. I'm pretty physically, I can usually tell like this is going to fit here. This is not going to fit here. Yeah. The spatial things I'm pretty aware. And that's why I am a good driver, because, well, I go too fast, but I'm good at understanding this, I don't know, this truck is this big, this turn is this turn. I need to turn the truck 45 degrees or whatever, however many degrees to the left. If I don't turn it that way, I'm going to hit something. So I usually do stuff where people are like, what the fuck? Like, he's not really trying that, but I don't hit stuff. So, and I would never do that if I wasn't confident in that decision.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't make decisions based off of lack of confidence. Like if I don't think it's going to work, I'm not going to do it. Like
Mm-hmm.
but if it's risky and there's a possibility, I'm going to take that chance.
Mm-hmm.
So
Gotcha. Yeah, you gave me the impression you were more focused on that kind of thing when you were talking about people, because it didn't seem like you were looking at anything that was implied, more like you were looking directly at what was like obvious.
yeah,
Right.
right.
Huh. Okay. Let me think. Oh, I know where I want to go. Next thing is, I want to ask you a little bit about like your relationships and things like that. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Like what, do you have a pretty easy time with that, or how does that go for you? What is that normally? What's your
Do you
approach?
mean
Like,
like
it could be
intimate
anything.
relationships?
I mean, intimate relationships is fine. It could be like surface level. It could be family, like all of that spectrum.
Um.
And you don't have to group them together. You can explain them individually.
Okay. So I've always had a weird relationship with like understanding people and kind of like
Mm-hmm.
I think I sometimes look at people in a very impersonal way.
Mm-hmm.
And even my studying of like typology is like, okay, you work this way. And so I know how you're going to work in this circumstance, but it kind of creates it almost depersonalizes that individual.
Mm-hmm.
So it can make it difficult for me at times when people do things that aren't quote unquote mechanical or, you
I
like,
don't abide
I'm
by
like,
like.
yeah, like they're just doing things that I didn't add into the equation, that I was like, okay, this is kind of strange that they're. So I mean, I definitely care about my family a lot. I mean, I definitely want to be there for them and be close to them. I have a tendency to be pretty withdrawn from like relationships and friendships. Like I need a lot of space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it if people are too close to me. I'm like, okay, like I just hang out with you last week. I don't need to hang out with you like every single week. Um, so that can be a problem because everyone else outside of me definitely values that more, and they're kind of like, you need to do this thing because it's important. And I'm like, well, I mean, I understand from a general point of view that it's important, but it's subjective. It's important to you. Like, you think that it's important, but I should be able to make that decision on my own, whether or not I can pick and choose when I think it's not important or important, but just like, I don't have to place the same level of emphasis and demonstration that you do to make it valuable or to make it, yeah. So, yeah.
So how does that tie in with the relationship?
It can make me withdrawn. It can make me get into conflicts with people if they want to constantly hang out or do stuff with me.
Oh, like if they're
on a
imposing a standard
Yes.
on you.
Yes.
Right. Got it.
Yeah. And an expectation, like,
Mm-hmm.
we need to hang out every day or hang out every week because we're close. And I'm like, okay, yes, we are close. That premise is correct, but your conclusion is wrong. Just because we're close doesn't mean that we have to hang out every week.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Do you feel like you can regulate like whether or not you're close with someone? Like, do you? Because
Yeah.
you seem to have a bit of an awareness right there. So how do you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I feel like I'm not getting enough time to just be by myself a little bit, and if I feel people are becoming dependent and like kind of codependent, then I'm going to kind of what's the word? Like, reestablish that boundary. Like, hey, we don't have to hang out every week. It's not that big of a deal. So that's a big conflict, because it's a conflict of interest. Other people around me value that far more than I do, or at least to a degree they're imposing that upon me, or at least, saying this is objective, and therefore you should abide by this rule of thumb. And I'm like, no, that's not objective. It's subjective. So therefore, I'm not going to do it when you want me to do it. I'm going to do it when I want to do it.
So it seems like other people are like measuring more so like the time that you invest with them as like an indicator of the strength of the connection.
Right. Which I don't work that way. I'm like, if I care for you, I care for you regardless of how much time I spend with you. Like, but obviously I also know if I'm never spending time with you, then I probably don't care for you.
Yeah.
Like, that's just, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah.
You said probably.
Yeah.
So did you not know that before?
Yeah. I wasn't nearly as aware of it. I didn't know why I was doing that, but I knew that there are people that are closer to me that I give more of my time. That just seems to be more logical. But if I have like very few friends and a lot of acquaintances, so the people that are acquaintances that want to be friends, I'm like, I have other people that I'm actually closer with that are more. It's more of an imperative to invest in them because they're closer and they're going to be here longer. So people that are acquaintances, it's like, yeah, we'll hang out once every like 3 months or something, because that makes the most sense, because I'm not that close with you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. Yeah, because when we started talking about this, and I asked you about whether or not you could regulate whether or not someone was close to you, it seemed more like the indicator was when they started making demands.
Yeah.
And that was how you knew. It was like you're expecting something. Like, so like the question is can someone get close enough to you where they can have those expectations and you won't reestablish the boundary?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
What kind
even
of okay, go ahead.
I would say, but even with that, there's still, I'm never not going to be boundaried. So if they're asking me to do things that are, because family can still take advantage of you. It doesn't matter that they're blood, like, and people close to you could still take advantage of you. So I will be far more lenient on my boundaries with people that I'm closest with, and I'll be very giving. Like, I will give you my time. I will do things for you. But if you fuck me over and you take advantage of that, then we're going to have to go in that place where I'm going to have to reevaluate. Like, don't do that. Like, don't take that for granted. So, yeah. but I'm far more lenient on my boundary with people that I'm closest to.
Okay. What kind of people do you generally get that close with?
People who have seen me through most of my life in most situations. So it's usually people that I've known for a long time.
People that understand you?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. Okay. So what about with your family? We've kind of gone over the friends stuff, and maybe.
Yeah, I would say it's the same for my family too, but they would be more closer to. It would still be the same for them.
So
I'd say.
you're saying the pattern that you just established is true in all contexts, just because it depends on like whether or not they're like familiar with you as to if you're a little bit more lenient on your boundaries. Okay. And so in a relationship, would you get very far with that? Sorry if I'm pushing into something.
No, you're not. It's not comfortable, but it's good, so it's not a big deal. With relationships, it takes a long time for me to get to the point where I'm like, and I have to kind of test that person. Like if I think that they're weak and they're not, if you can't see me as I am all the time, then it's probably not going to work because the way that I connect with people is very it can be kind of unorthodox and kind of like if I'm joking with you and kind of like roasting you, it's because I like you. If I'm not roasting you, I don't care about you. So when I'm dating people, I'll poke fun at times because I'm trying to, one, make them stronger, and two, see if they're actually worth investing in. Because if they can't take that, it's kind of like, and I'm not going to be a dick to them, but it's, for me, that's a like kind of a type of engagement. So I'm really kind of reserved at first, and then the longer I'm with that person, the more I'll be more open and willing to be, I guess, emotionally influenced, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. Do you ever like have a strong dislike towards someone?
Not really. They'd have to do something legitimately jacked up, but not really. I can usually get along with anybody.
So if they did something legitimately jacked up, then is it like do you like, is it permanent? Like have they burned that bridge like permanently?
Not if they acknowledge it. If they don't care and they continue doing that thing, then of course I'm gonna say, well, that's you're kind of a piece of shit. But
they take responsibility.
Yeah, if they say, yo, I messed up, I shouldn't have crossed that line or I shouldn't have done that, then I'm like, it's no big deal, just don't do it again. Like, it's kind of I'm a respect, like if you respect me, I'll respect you. And as long as we're aware of that boundary of respect, then I can talk to anybody, even if I'm extremely different than them. I can really talk to anyone. But
okay. All right, how about this? Do you feel like you've got a good sense of like where you're headed?
No. No.
Okay.
I have a general idea, but I don't have a very clear. It's like I take very in the moment moves that I feel are necessary to get at that generalized place, let's say.
Okay. Do you have any kind of like feelings towards that?
Not really. I mean, usually the things that are right, I usually look from like now and maybe 2 or 3 years in the future. So it's not super far away, but it's kind of more immediate. And if I'm on the general track working towards that, then I'm okay with it. I don't really think about it too much. So yeah, I'm not really afraid of the future. And I know the future is inevitable, but I do what I need to in the moment in order to actualize those steps to get to that place, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Would you say that you generally have a good sense of how things are going to happen, or do you feel like you have to learn by consequence?
No, I have a pretty good sense of how things are going to happen. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, I usually know if I do this, this will happen. I can see this kind of down the road. It's yeah. It's kind of general, but I still have a good sense of where it's going to lead.
Hmm.
But I also don't think about that much. So it's kind of like, this is probably going to happen, so let me just put that in the back burner. I don't really have to think about it that much.
What informs that? Do you know what informs that knowledge?
Probably past experience and present data, and kind of
Okay.
seeing, okay, this happened in a similar fashion before. This is happening in the moment. If I do this I don't do this, this is going to happen in the future.
Hmm.
So it's kind of relying on the past and the present to kind of forecast what's a likely future outcome.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
Am I hard?
No, actually,
Okay.
yeah, actually, so where I'm at basically is I I felt like it was pretty clear, but I like to be really confident, so I'm kind of trying to narrow out between another alternative, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So, let's see. So, what about, do you have like a view on like life?
What do you mean?
Like, do you have like a stance, or like, do you have a sense of like why we're here and what we're doing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say probably because of my faith. If I didn't have my faith, then probably I would not have a foundation of like, this is the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm here. Um, so I think that is strictly because I'm a Christian and therefore I have that kind of understanding of the existential purpose, I guess. But otherwise, I probably wouldn't. I would probably fabricate something that I think is the most useful kind of like tool to ground um, my reason being here, I guess.
Mhm. Okay. Hmm. Let's see. Do you ever wait, do you ever see someone use excessive amounts of like data that you feel like they missed the point? I know that's an oddly specific question.
No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I would say I like to use data too, and I like to understand data, but there's a point in which you have to implement that. I mean, you can theorize all day and think about it could be this, it could be that, which I do that a lot. But when for me, the data is in order to act. I mean, I have things where I acquire data in order to understand, and I like that, and I do that a lot. But when someone's just thinking about all the patterns or thinking about all the data, but not doing anything with it, to me, it seems somewhat useless. I'm like, okay, how is that affecting you now? Are you changing your approach to what's happening? Are you reorienting yourself? Are you growing? What is the use of that? It's kind of, in my mind, people can be hoarders of data and just have a library in their house, but there is no residual effects of what it's doing. So the data at that point lies dead. I think data should be used for a certain end. One end obviously can also be just for mental stimulation, which again, like I do that. But for me, even when I'm doing that, it's to understand reality. It's to understand, what is this thing that I'm looking at? How can I understand it?
Actionable principles.
Yeah.
Right. So that's definitely leaning on the side of like intellectualism being kind of, maybe not very like practical, or maybe like a little bit redundant sometimes. But
Yeah.
I guess what I'm looking for is like if you were in an organization where they were really focused on being efficient,
Mm-hmm.
would you feel like, even though the information is being put to use, is that more in line with something that you would I'm so vague. I gotta focus on what I'm saying.
You're good.
Is that more in line with like something you'd be good with, or is there like a threshold that you may reach where you start asking like whether or not someone's like missing the point in a sense of principle? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the data, it happens at work. I mean, people will say, we have this many packages out today, or this. To me, it's like, okay, yeah, I hear that, but it's not about just the impersonal data. It's like, kind of, what is the meaning? What's behind it? What is that implying? So you're just giving me a number, and you're saying, if you plug this in, it's going to yield this response. And I'm like, great. What does the data mean? What does the trend mean? Because if you don't know that first, applying that you could be applying it in a misdirected way, I guess. So my dad does that. He is a very political fella, and he will throw facts at me, and I like facts too, but I'm like, okay, what's the fact mean? Like, is that fact a truism, or is it perceived as a fact? And that's where we clash, because he doesn't like that, because he wants to just kind of expedite the data and say, okay, this is how it applies, and this is why you should listen to it. And I'm like, okay, yeah, but what does it mean? Let's dig deeper beyond just the numbers, and see and figure out the actual complexity of that kind of piece of information, I guess.
Do you tend to invalidate data at all?
I question data.
Okay.
I mean, I think data and facts are true objectively, and I think people perceiving them are subjective. So I question the perceiver, not the data. So I'm like, okay, what's actually the data? Okay, I've established that seems to be recordable and seems to be actually true. Are we perceiving it correctly? Are we understanding it correctly? For example, like, I've had situations where people would say, this is true because I've talked to 10 people, or 10 people with certifications, and they say it's true. And I'll always tell them that's great, but I can find 10 other people who are equally or more certified than that person, who can say something to contradict that. And so I tell them, okay, well, what do you do with that? And they just get pissed, because they're like, well, they say, well, one, why do you always have to challenge this? And I'm just like, why do you always have to accept that? Like, you got to look on both sides. You can't just look on this side and think, because I have a group of people that agree on this principle, therefore it's correct. Because I can find, again, another tribe of individuals that can say the complete opposite of what you've already produced. Therefore, the truth is independent of the groups. So I'm always kind of like criticizing that kind of, yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it. Interesting. What's your relationship to comfort?
Not very good. As you can tell. I don't like to be comfortable. I try to resist being comfortable. It's kind of funny, because people at work, like, I will do better if there is some type of challenge. So if it's like pouring down rain and it's cold, like people will say, man, today sucked. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It was great. Like I was way quicker. And they're just like, what? Like, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, well, when it's sunny outside and it's nice, I get lazy and I don't like that. And I'm noticeably slower because I'm kind of relaxing and I'm like, nah, fuck. So when it's harder and it's raining and cold, I'm like, great, now I have something to push against. And kind
Energizes you.
Yeah. But that's definitely not something that I can tell people. They're kind of like, you're fucking weird. I'm like, well, I guess, but yeah, I've always been that too.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah. So do you tend to push yourself in situations and make things more difficult so that you rise to the challenge?
100%. I have to tell myself it's okay to just kind of go with the flow. Like you don't have to. I'm very competitive. Yeah, I don't. When I rest, it's not for a long time, and then I feel lazy, and I'm like, I need to do something. So, yeah.
If someone puts an obstacle in your path, are you able to resist trying to pass it up?
I can. I mean, if it's an obstacle that's
is it tempting?
Oh yeah, a little bit. I mean, it definitely is tempting. But I would say if someone's doing it, I can kind of be like, no, you don't want to do that. Like, but if it's things that become obstacles, then I'm far more like, no, now it's on. But if someone, because sometimes people try to
People
goad
get in
me
the way. Right.
Yeah, I mean, people like if people try to challenge me, like I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I don't really take that seriously. But if there's something actually like in the environment that is saying, okay, I'm here, move me, I'm gonna move it. Like I'm not gonna. But usually, if it's people and they try to get me to do things and they try to challenge me and stuff like that, I'm like, stop doing that. Like,
right.
But yeah.
Okay, so another question: do you feel like you, because you seem very environment focused, so I just want to see, like, generally, is your environment pretty put together? Is it pretty kept up with? Or
I'm always aware of my environment. I try to keep it somewhat put together, but it doesn't really work that well. But yeah, I'm definitely aware of the environment, like very much so.
So it must just depend on what you're doing.
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I can conclude on your type.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it was actually really obvious from the start, but I was just trying to narrow out like an alternative. So yeah, so I'm pretty sure that you are an SLE. Yeah.
Oh.
So are you familiar with Socionics?
I don't know Socionics. That's ESTP, isn't it?
Right. SE first, CI second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've studied. Socionics was one that I haven't studied. I'm telling myself, because if I start looking at something, I have to know all of it. So, but yeah.
Yeah, you'll probably learn it soon. Yeah, especially now that you have something to build off of. Yeah. So, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
It's all right because I'm about to dive in. So.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought at first for a while I was an ENTJ, and then I realized that my NI is fucking horrible. And I started doing a lot of conversations with people, started learning a lot more about the functions and everything. And actually, I was with another group of typing people, whatever, and they typed me as an ESTP. So this was kind of like, this was like kind of confirming, like, is that actually true? So that's pretty
well, I can't speak for MBTI, you know.
okay.
I've kind of when I transitioned to Socionics, I just kind of like
Left it
emptied all
behind.
of that. Yeah. So it's not even, I can't even do a comparison really between the types any longer. I have like a vague memory of it, but yeah. So the thing is, when we're looking at SLE, I'm going to kind of describe a little bit of the anatomy. So I'm actually your dual in the system, which means that it's a really compatible relationship. Basically, the values are parallel, but the strength is opposite, right? So for SLEs, their base element is SE, and in Socionics, that's force, right? So it's all about creating an impact. It's creating a direct effect on the environment. It can also be related to like control, because obviously we're looking at an effect. And then as a consequence, they have a lesser sense of time, right? So, yeah. So oftentimes SLEs, when they're learning how to, like, if they have a prediction of what's going to happen, it's usually because they've tried it, and that's how they know. And you know, you went over that a little bit in terms of like looking over your history and kind of having a forecast based off the current situation, if it'll be similar. And that is something I noticed a lot about you, is you were very environment focused, both in that way and also when you turn towards the way that you interact with people. Whereas, you know, you don't really know what's going on inside the person or what may be going on behind the person in terms of time, but rather you're just focused on their immediate reaction now. And you're like, oh, clearly they have an issue. I don't know why they have an issue, but they've got one now. So I didn't mean to piss you off, bro. Yeah. So that's all showing a lot of emphasis on like the physical environment. And of course, in Socionics, sensing versus intuition, it's going to be pretty clearly like focused on your environment versus like your predictions or possibilities or ideas and things like that. So you were definitely more focused on the environment. And then as a creative function, the SLE, so basically like in Socionics, you have dimensionality as well to account for. So high dimensionality just meaning like a greater nuance and capacity to comprehend a certain type of information, right? So for SLE, you're looking at 4-dimensional SE, but then for the creative function, you're looking at 3-dimensional TI. And these are both valued elements. So they're things that you care about. And for TI, we're looking at an impersonal understanding. So I think one of the best ways to think about, or one way to think about TI is the law, right? In the sense of like, let's say that I commit a crime. It's not very likely, but let's say I commit a crime and then I go to the police station and I have like an uncle that works there, and he's like, oh, I'll just let you out. Like you're balancing the scales of justice in your favor. You see what I'm saying? There's personal value being attributed to that. And so it changes the balance. And so for TI, it's all about things remaining impersonal and establishing a rule or boundary that applies regardless of like how one person personally feels towards someone or something, right? And so because of that, you know, I mean, they'll still have friends. SLEs are, you know, they're not like really the relationship type. And that's why I dug into it so hard, because I want to make sure I got everything. But they're not really the relationship type. They'll have like people that they care about and that they know are close to them, but it's not like they get any exception to the rule just because, you know, of that. And, you know, you seem like you'll be a little bit like more lenient or maybe a little less hard on someone, but it seems like really what you're wanting to do, especially you mentioned like when you're looking to date someone, you want to see if they can react to jabs and things like that, because you want them to be stronger, right? And so that was something you kept returning to. And so I think a lot of times SLEs will kind of push people for that very reason. Like I have these standards in place, not because I don't like you, but because I want to see you be better, you know?
Right.
And,
Right.
and so that's a huge part of that whole thing. And I think we should probably, we'll come back to that. So they're very systematic thinkers, and actually, no, we'll go into it now. So basically, they also have a element that's four-dimensional as well that they don't value, and it's called it's TE. So basically, TE is very focused on like real-time logical data, right? And so they're really focused on like SLEs will gather a lot of information, and then they'll condense it into their own set of principles, which we talked about in the beginning.
Yeah.
That's pretty consistent for them. But the difference is that when you have like a type that values TE,
Mm-hmm.
so on MBTI, that'd be on the left side, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you have a type that values TE, then they're going to be like really focused on efficiency, right? For the sake of efficiency. And oftentimes their decisions are a reflection of who they care about or what they care about. And so
Hmm.
they sort of, it's much more personal than with the SLE, whereas they're focusing specifically on what do I care the most about and how am I going to manage resources to accompany those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but the
Mhm.
thing is, in the SLE, you primarily see it as like a big funnel of information that they kind of like regurgitate and like put together a system that, you know, accommodates all of those different pieces of information. They're really good at that, actually. It's actually pretty incredible because I don't research at all. So it's really helpful to me when someone can like systemize it for me so I can just kind of like pick up a routine or a system.
Mhm.
So for the mobilizing element or the mobilizing function, we have FE for you. So FE is all about emotions. It's about expression. It's about vibes, energy. It can even be in things like when you look at art or music, like there's a certain something that exudes from it, a certain frequency, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. And
Mhm.
so the mobilizing element is going to be something that you want to get better at, but it's not something you naturally do well, right?
Oh
And so
yeah.
and so you're kind of seeking it out a little bit. Um, and and it is, you know, like I said before, it's not like emotion specifically is not personal, right?
Right.
Emotions are impersonal to everyone. We all have emotions,
Right.
right? And so that's a big difference between like FE and FI, because
Mm.
FI is about like how one personally feels about something, right? It's, you can think of it as a internal like attraction or repulsion to something.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So so for SLEs, they wouldn't have a strong awareness of this. They'd be primarily focused um, on the bodies of emotion, if that makes sense. Whereas like let's say we took FI, it's considered a field. So
Mhm.
that would be about like how certain people feel towards certain things, right?
Mm.
And
Right.
so like earlier you referred to that in terms of you wanted to say something and you know and you say it and everyone's like whoa, like don't you realize they may be sensitive to that thing, and you're like, I don't know how he feels about it, like he didn't say anything, you
Right.
know. You know, and you kind of needed it explicitly like stated or expressed to actually
Right.
like operate off of that, right?
Right.
um and so, and actually, like talking with you, I think you're a really, really good portrait of an SLE. So I'm lucky that I have this interview. But
Mhm.
that's a big part of FE mobilizing types. Another thing they'll usually want to do when it's in the mobilizing position is inspire people. They want to be able to like create a call to action and other
Mm.
people, and like inspire people to like move towards like a goal, you know.
Right.
And and so, you know, it's like um it's public speaking is another one, like like I think that's something that they usually gravitate towards. They want to like get better at presenting themselves in front of large groups of people.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. And I think one of the biggest like things for an SLE is the emotional environment. And so, you know, my friend's an SLE, and one time we had this girl visiting, and she she like just started creating issues, you know, like
Mhm.
and you know, I think he like quickly got really annoyed by it, and I like walked out of the room, and then I came back and I was like, "Where'd she go?" And he was like, "Told her to leave." He's like, he was like, she messed up the mood, man. Like, she's like, you don't. He was like, you don't fuck with the mood. um,
Oh, that's good.
and so you can kind of see that it's almost like you know, like, I don't know how to diagnose this problem, but this person's like ruining the atmosphere, I think it really has an effect on SLEs as well, you know. And I
Yeah.
actually, to the point where I've noticed that I so naturally and casually give off like vibes, and I don't really think about it. And then
Yeah.
like I've noticed SLEs kind of like they really like notice it, you know, like they really
Yeah.
pick up on it. So
Yeah. Yeah.
if someone comes through like with a raging hammer of emotion, it's gonna like really fuck with them, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
That's very true. I do that. I can tell if, and also like I don't feel a need to kind of like if I have a problem with someone, I can say it in the group, and it's not like a big deal. But when people have issues in the group, that's when I get annoyed because it's like someone's clearly pissed. Like either just talk about it now or just like why is it a big like that pisses me off.
yeah,
But
like
yeah.
you're gonna hold on to that, but you're not gonna like take care of it. So like, why don't you just like leave then?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
like take it somewhere
You're
else because you're affecting everyone else, right?
right. Right.
Yeah. So that's exactly yeah, that lines up with SLE perfectly. Another thing is, you know, we're looking at in terms of like the suggestive element.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a one-dimensional element that's valued. And so it's called the suggestive because generally people receive that information well because it's not something they really produce on their own, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this would be something like, you know, how things are going to play out, or um, or whether or not something's meaningful, you know, like that's not a fight you want to get into, you know what I mean? Like that's not worth your time. Something
Right.
like that, or being like, nah, you don't want to do that because this might happen. Like that's the
Right.
sort of thing that SLEs will be receptive to, as well as like deeper meaning. Um, you know, like I kind of mentioned this earlier, and you said that you're Christian, so you have like something that you have as like a foundation in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
But like if we took an SLE that didn't, their dual my type is an IEI, and they're usually very philosophical, and like and they're like they kind of think about like the meaning behind things, and it's a big focus of their psyche.
Mm-hmm.
So when you know they're around an SLE, and SLE will kind of pick up on those things because they don't really produce the deeper meaning by themselves. And the way that I always explain this is that, you know, SLEs are naturally materialist, but they
Mm-hmm.
know there's something out there. They know there's something like beyond the surface. They just don't know what it is. And that's kind of like, I think the mentality that you'll see SLEs take is like, I don't know what's going on behind the curtains, right?
Right.
But like, I know there's something. There's got to be
Right.
something, you know?
Right.
Um, and so, and they have, in that way, they have a relationship to the unknown. And I want to hammer this because while their suggestive element may be NI, their role element is NE, and their role is unvalued, but it's two-dimensional. So I call it the crutch function, because
Mm-hmm.
it's something that you rely on because it has to do with the abstract in this example for you, but um, it's easier than what you truly value, which would be NI and having a clear sense of where you're going and things like that, and what the real truth is. And despite in comparison to having a sense of openness and exploration of different possible outcomes, or you know, different interpretations, that's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit easier to process, and so they'll often lean on that that capacity. So trying to remember what I was gonna say. Oh, they have a relationship to the unknown. So basically, like, I think it's pretty common for them to have a sense of like, I don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
Anything could come at me at any time, so I need to be prepared for it. And we kind of went
Mhm.
over that a little bit earlier because you were talking about how much you collect data and information that you might not even really need, but a big part of it is that you don't know what's going to happen, and so you want to be prepared for when it does.
Right. Right.
Yeah, so that's a big part of that type. Um, the other thing is, we talked about comfort a little bit. So really, for socionics, you're looking at introverted sensation. This is it's not that it is comfort, it's that it's about maintaining like homeostasis and like not like in everything and the environment being balanced to the degree that not one thing has too much of an impact on another. You see what I'm
Mm.
saying? And so
Yeah.
that's sort of the focal point of SI, but for an SLE, they're so focused on like creating an effect on the environment and having an impact. They
Mm.
want to make a splash or a ripple. And so it's
Mm.
like, and so for other people that can be like intimidating or like freaky because it's like, whoa, like you just blew past all of my boundaries and it's like, and you're just creating this big splash and you have no concern for what's happening. And it's
Yeah.
like that's a pretty it's a pretty common SLE problem. But it's not that they don't have a sense of boundaries and they know what they're doing. Like
Right. Right.
they know, they have a good awareness of boundaries and of their environment and what they're doing to the environment. It's just that
Right.
their priorities lie in that impact, not
Mm.
in not in making everyone feel good and like
Right.
coddling everybody,
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
yeah, so, and I think that's a big part of what we were saying earlier is like pushing people to be better, and having
Mm.
a forceful effect on people, not letting them like get too comfortable, kind of like what you were
Yeah.
saying earlier about,
Yeah.
not wanting to be comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, so as far as I'm trying to think if I left anything out. No, I think that covers a lot of things. The last part is, looking at like IEI. Um, I think this is just helpful to kind of understand like um, maybe a little bit more dynamic of like what an SLE is, their complementary opposite.
Mm.
So with IEIs, IEIs have an awareness of how people feel towards things. It's a strong
Right.
awareness, but it's not like they're establishing that themselves. They're not saying this is how I feel about this, and like
Mm.
it's more like the way you are, where you're going to have passing emotion,
Hmm.
and not something that's like rigid and stays with you.
Hmm.
I kind of mentioned this earlier when we were talking about like someone carrying something around with them, like, and it's
Mm.
affecting the mood, and it's like
Oh
just let it
yeah.
go, just let it go. And
Right.
it's kind of like that. And IEI is not going to be naturally placating those kind of things. They're going to like get over things pretty quickly, but they know how to accommodate the emotional environment for people who have those issues. Like they have a good
Mm.
sense of that. And so
Yeah.
that's something that they'll do naturally in the background without even really thinking about it, in the same way that you'll naturally gather information and produce like systems out of it. Right.
Mm.
So
Gotcha.
yeah,
In-
I think that probably covers everything you need to
cool,
know.
man. Well, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I definitely knew after studying when I was studying another system, I was like, I have to be an EP and I have to be an ILS. Like, but I definitely think I'm just too. I think too much. I think in terms of like narrowing something down, making sense of things, and just being debatable and like the principle thing is very interesting too. Of like having those principles and like
Mhm.
wanting people to almost value that or at least see like this is rational. Like you should see it as rational as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and just so MBTI and Socionics aren't compatible, so it doesn't necessarily mean that
Mhm.
you're an ESTP and MBTI. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
They're totally different taxonomies. So
Okay. Cool.
in fact, they're different foundationally too. So, but
Gotcha. Well, cool, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording really quick.
All right.